Hey guys, what is going on? LegoMan123 and welcome back to another tier listing making video, where today in this episode I'll be ranking my favourite characters from the Hobbit trilogy. So without further ado, let's get into it. So starting off, we have Azog, and I find him a really interesting character because he's not like any sort of orc, because he's this more updated sort of hybrid of an orc, and I find him really interesting because he has so much history in Middle-earth, because he was in a lot of battles, and you could just see that he's been there for a while, because like all his scars. And what I really like about Azog is that he's a really good planner for like the battles of the five armies. He planned that out really nicely, so that I might possibly put him in A, because I find him a really awesome orc. Then we have Baolin, and he's an interesting dwarf because I think he's possibly like one of the oldest dwarves in the company, and he's probably like one of the wisest, because he gives a lot of sort of information about Thorne and like how he battles Azog for like the first time. So I find that definitely very interesting, and he also did help out like people understand, or the dwarves like understand stuff, including Bilbo. He definitely did help him, so I might put him in A. Then we have Bart, and he is one of like the residents in Lake Town, and he's a sort of a rebel in a way, because he really doesn't listen to like the town master. And he's also a really good bow sort of person, so I find that really interesting. And he did lead like the Lake Town people to the Battle of the Five Armies, and he did fight that. So I find him a really interesting character, because even though that the Lake Town people did suffer like lots after Smaug like destroyed their whole sort of village, Bart still fought like in the Battle of the Five Armies, and he still encouraged people to fight. So I might possibly put him maybe in B, because I just wish we learnt more about him. Then we have, I forgot this guy's name, but I know that he does turn into like a bear. I'm not too sure if it's only at nighttime or he can do it at willing, but I'm pretty sure he can do it like at willing. So this is a really interesting character, because he had such a sad story that he was like, I think, a prisoner of Azog. Like him and his people were like prisoners to Azog, and they are really tall people. I'm not too sure if they're like humans or like sort of different sort of humans in a way, but they are really interesting people. But I just wish we learned a little more about him, like what happened during that time he was a prisoner. But he definitely did have a sad backstory. And what I really like was, he did say he's not a fan of dwarves, as like he does say something like that, but he like still had them in his home and all that. He like, as soon as he like got out of his bear state and saw the dwarves, he's like, get out or something. He was really nice about it and actually gave them food. So I might possibly put him maybe in C, because I just wish we learnt more about this character, like his backstory. Then we have another one of the dwarves, and I did forget his name, but I do remember he does have like this mini, or like a broken part of a sword or an axe like carved into his forehead. That's all I remember about him. And he sort of like grunts, because I think that's the only way he can talk, but I'm not too sure. He's probably one of like the most forgetful dwarves in my opinion, so I might possibly put him maybe in, I'm thinking D, but I might possibly put him in C. Then we have Bilbo Baggins, and what I really love about this character is all the character development he does go through, because in the first sort of half an hour of the film, he doesn't really want to go on an adventure. Like, he doesn't really care about it, because he is a Baggins and he doesn't want to do that. And then he does go on the adventure in like the next sort of 45 minutes of the film. And then during the other two films, Desolation of Smaug, he sort of begins to enjoy spending time with the dwarves and all that. He really does enjoy like a choice he did make on this adventure. And then in the Battle of the Five Armies, that's when it all sort of concludes. Like, his adventure did end, he goes back to Middle-earth, and what I really like was, he wrote a book about it, like to share his experience with like the Frodo Baggins and like all the other people in sort of Baggins. So that's what I really did enjoy. He had such a great character development, where in the first film he really didn't care about going on an adventure, but then in the sort of second and third film he really loved going on that adventure, and it really did change him in a way, because he did find the One Ring. So I might possibly put him maybe in second position in A. Then we have another one of the dwarves, and I've actually forgotten his name. I think it's like Bother? Oh no. but I really loved this dwarf because he was just so kind to Bilbo and like the rest of the dwarves. He was also really fun to watch during the 3 movies, but the most important part about this dwarf, in my opinion, was just how kind he was to Bilbo and just everybody else. So it was definitely really fun and also really enjoyable seeing him. So I might possibly put him maybe in first position in B, because I just wish we learnt a bit more of his backstory, because he definitely did have some like gaps missing, but I just wish we learnt a little more about him. Then we have Bolg, and this is Azog's son, I believe, and he's another really interesting sort of hybrid of an orc, because he did like kill Keeley, and then he almost did kill Talerul, and then he almost did actually kill Legolas, but then Legolas did get up the upper hand. So this is a really interesting orc because of just how powerful he is. Almost as powerful as Azog, but I think Azog is a little more powerful. And I just wish we possibly maybe learned a little more backstory about him, like how he became like Azog's son in a way, like how he's so powerful and all that. I wish we saw some flashbacks about him. That would have worked a lot more better. But it was really interesting to like see him with like an army of like wargs and orcs. That was really awesome. So I might possibly put him maybe in C. Then we have Bomba Boomba. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, but I find him a really awesome dwarf because like the funny part, which I thought was really interesting to watch, was I think it was in the Unexpected Journey, when the dwarfs are running, including Bilbo, are running from wargs, I believe, or orcs, and like Boomba, he just starts passing everybody, and like he's in like the sort of front of the group. So I thought that was just the best scene, and it really does sum up Boomba. He was really awesome to watch because he did enjoy like food and all that. That was really cool with like how he ate the food off like the plates in the unexpected sort of party. I thought that was really funny. He's just really enjoyable to see on screen, and definitely in the battle it was really cool, but by far one of the greatest scenes of Boomba was in the Desolation of Smaug, when like he was in the barrel and he sort of like rolled up onto the land from like the waterfall, and he started like taking out orcs while in his barrel, and then like his barrel's all destroyed and he like jumps into a new one. I thought that was such an awesome scene, so I might possibly put him, I'm thinking A, but I just wish we learned just a little more about his backstory, so I might put him maybe in B as well. Next we have another dwarf, and this was not part of the company of dwarves. This is actually a separate dwarf, and he is Thorin's cousin. I'm not sure if it's his older or younger cousin, and he does sort of lead the Iron Hills or Foot sort of dwarf clan into the Battle of Five Armies. And what I really like about this character is how interesting he is, because he sort of follows Thorne with like the whole sort of rule where elves and sort of dwarves fight one another, and I think he's a really funny character as well. And then what I really like was when the orcs got to like the Battle of the Five Armies or Erebor. What I liked was that he actually went to go fight the orcs instead of just continuing to battle the elves. He sort of does have that judgment against who's really the bad guy. And then I also really like how the elves and the dwarves sort of work together. So I might possibly put him maybe in no, not C or D, maybe in C, because I just wish we maybe learned a bit more of his backstory. So I might maybe move him into S. Yeah, I think that's a bit more of a better sort of part, because I just wish we learned maybe just a little more about his backstory. Then we have, I think his name is like Dory or Nori, I'm pretty sure. He's an interesting dwarf. I do like how he sort of fathers a dwarf, which we'll get to soon, but I just wish we maybe learned a little more about him, because he's once again one of those sort of forgetful dwarfs, so I might maybe put him in C. Then we have Dwalin, and I find him a really awesome character because he's definitely interesting. He's sort of like that sort of tough guy, and he does have sort of feelings in a way, because he doesn't really want to show his emotions, but sometimes you can definitely see that. And what I really love about this character is he actually protected Bilbo, in my opinion, the most out of all the characters, because in the Battle of the Five Armies, there was this part where I thought like Bilbo was going to be killed by goblin mercenaries, but then Dwalin comes out of nowhere and just swings his axe. So I thought that was such an awesome moment. So I might possibly put him maybe in B, maybe in that position in B, because he was definitely really interesting to watch, and he's like that sort of tough guy. But I just wish me maybe just learn a little bit more about his backstory. We do get to see some of it, but I just wish we maybe learn a little more. Then we have, I believe that's Elrond, but I'm not too sure, but I'm pretty sure it is. He was really interesting in this. He really wasn't in it too much of the Battle of the Five Armies, apart from this scene in Dongle, oh, I forgot the name of it, like, oh man, sorry about this, but I'm pretty sure it's like Dongle, oh man, I'm really butchering that name, but it was really interesting to see him, like, battle the Nazguls in a way, but in their, like, sort of ghost form, and then he was in the Desolation of Smaug. I don't think he was in it at all, maybe just some quick scenes, but then in The Unexpected Journey, he was in that, like, the most. What I really love about him was, there might be this rule against Dwarf and elves hating one another, but then, like, Lord Elrond, he's really nice to the dwarves. He, like, lets them in their homes, even though that Thorin, like, doesn't want to go there. Like, Elrond is, like, insisting to go there, and he does help Thorne sort of figure out, like, this sort of key to the map. So I really like just how nice he is, and I also really love all the backstory we do learn about him. Not just in this, but also Lord of the Rings. He definitely did have a much bigger part in that. So I might possibly put him maybe B or A. Yeah, I might put him in A. Then we have Keeley, and I really enjoy this character, just like Keeley, because they're some of the funniest dwarves in the Hobbit trilogy, because as soon as they say, "at your service," I knew they were just going to be like the sort of comic relief sort of dwarves. So I really did enjoy just how funny they were. They were really interesting to also watch. They might be like the sort of funny duo, or like the sort of funny dwarves in the company, but they are definitely really awesome fighters, as we could see. So I might possibly put him maybe in B, because what I really like was that both Keeley and Keeley, they were sort of not messing around, but they really weren't too sure what was going on, because they were still young, so they really weren't, like, sure about this whole sort of battle, because they sort of joke about something in The Unexpected Journey, and I really find that interesting, because they're, like, young, so they're really not too sure what's going on, and I think it fits perfectly for their sort of characters. But then they both do die in the Battle of the Five Armies, which was definitely really sad. Next we have Galadriel, and I honestly really don't like her in this, so I might put her maybe in C, just because of how much power she does have. She was definitely interesting in, like, the sort of council with, like, Gandalf, Saruman, and then Elrond. So I think also, no, I don't think Radagast was there. And then also the battle at Dongul Gul, where, like, they rescued Gandalf. I thought that was really cool. She just sort of, like, silently came in, and, like, the orc sort of there was like, huh, what are you going to do? You're like a female. So I thought that was really interesting, but I just wish she just used her power more, because it would have been, like, so useful. I think she was, like, holding it back, so she was a little, oh, what's that word? Oh, I don't know the word off the top of my head, but I just wish she used, like, that power more. That would have been really useful in, like, the Battle of the Five Armies, like, even against Azog. Like, why are we holding this much power back? So that is why I put her in C. Then we have Gandalf De Grey, and I honestly love this character. I'm just going to put him straight up in A, in first position, because I really enjoyed this character. Not just the person who did, like, sort of take his role, Ian McCallick, I believe. Oh man, I'm really bad at pronouncing his last name. But I think he did such a perfect role for Gandalf, and I really enjoyed all the wisdom he gave, how nice he was to all the dwarves, including all the other people he did meet, except for, like, the bad guys, obviously. And then I also really enjoyed how encouraging he was to Bilbo, like, telling him, come on this journey and all that, and also some really wise words to Bilbo and just all the dwarves. That is why I really did enjoy him, especially in, like, some of the battles, because he did have a staff and sword, so it was really awesome to see him sort of do that at the same time. And then I really enjoyed some of, like, the scenes we just had him and Radagast, including just by himself. I thought that was really interesting. Then we have another one of the dwarves, and this is probably the dwarf I, like, I can't remember off the top of my head. I really don't remember too much about him. I do remember like seeing him in some battles, but that's really it. So I'm just gonna put him in C. The next character is the Goblin King, and this was the character like the sort of side villain in the Unexpected Journey. We really don't know too much about him except that he lives, I believe, the Misty Mountains are like inside of it, and he's like the Goblin King of all the goblins and all that. Now I find this character a little strange because we honestly really don't learn too much about him. All we know there's like he's like the Goblin King and he's sort of in control of all the goblins. I just wish we maybe learned a little more about him because just from the look of him, it really looks like he's been in like a lot of battles and all that. So I just wish we maybe just got like some flashbacks about him. So I find that just a little annoying. So I might possibly maybe put him in last position in S. Then we have Gollum, and this is going to be really hard to decide where he does go because I'm maybe thinking in like fourth position in A. Yeah, I might put him there because he was such an awesome character. I really love how we got to see once again his two sides, like his sort of good and like his sort of evil side. I thought that was really awesome. Just to hear Gollum's voice was really great once again as well. And just everything. We only got to see one sort of quick moment, and that, well, not really quick, it was like a good maybe 15 minutes, and that was the riddles in the dark. That might have only been like a short 15-minute part of the Unexpected Journey, but it was really awesome to watch. Just seeing Gollum once again was really great, and what I really liked was we got to see like this backstory and like how the One Ring not corrupted him. We got to see that in Return of the King, but I really liked how we got to see how the ring sort of became so attached to Gollum, and like how Bilbo did pick it up and all that. But Gollum was definitely really awesome to see. Next we have Keeley, I believe, Keeley. I really find this character really awesome because what I liked was, even though that elf and dwarf, they're sort of supposed to be against one another, I really like how Keeley tries to get with Taleril, which is in the Mirkwood sort of forest. I find that a really sort of interesting love story, how like these two different sides who are like two different races, they try sort of have this love story together. Very interesting, and I think it worked really nicely. I liked how it sort of started off all slow and then it sort of built up. It really didn't get too far because then Keeley did sadly die, and it was definitely sad to watch him die because he did actually get stabbed by Bolg in like the sort of chest or upper chest, and then like Taleril was watching, so that was definitely sad, but it was really awesome to watch him because, as I said with Keeley, they're like the sort of comedy duo. They're really fun to watch, but they are sometimes serious when like fighting, so I might possibly maybe put him maybe higher up in B because I just find him a little more enjoyable, so I might maybe put him maybe in third last position in B. Next we have Legolas, and he's definitely a really awesome character. What I liked was how he sort of not hated, that's a pretty strong word, but I liked how we got to see his side of how he really didn't like dwarves too much, and then in the Lord of the Rings we got to see how he partnered up with, I forgot his name, damn. We got to see him partner up with a dwarf in the Lord of the Rings, and I find that a really interesting sort of story for him, where in the Hobbit he really didn't like dwarves, but then in the Lord of the Rings, he sort of enjoyed like the dwarves' company. So I find that a really interesting story. And what I really liked was that he might be the son of Threanu, who is the Mirkwood sort of king. I find it really interesting how he sort of goes against his father, because in the Battle of the Five Armies, Legolas was told by like a Mirkwood guard from Threanu to actually come back to Mirkwood, but then he said, like, I don't want to because then I'll help Taleril out because Taleril was banished. I find that a really interesting backstory because, like, he went against his father, so I find that really interesting. But he definitely does have a really awesome sort of fight with Bolg. That was really great to see, so I might possibly put him maybe in A. Next character is like the chief of Lake Town, and I find him a really boring character, so I'm just going to put him straight up in D because from the the Desolation of Smaug, I believe that's when we went to Lake Town. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And then the Battle of the Five Armies. He's just so easily persuaded, so he's like a puppet. So the first case was from like his sort of counselor, which I've forgotten the name of. Like, he was persuaded by him to sort of arrest Bart, and then he was also persuaded by Thorne to actually sort of let them go, because I actually did get caught by like the Lake Town sort of guards and then taken to this character, and then like Thorne easily persuaded him by saying, if you let us go, we'll like go to Erebor and then like come back with like a bunch of gold to help you out. So like he was very easily persuaded by that, and then I'm very glad he died, but it was definitely interesting how he did die, but I'm kind of glad because like he was a pretty bad sort of chief of Lake Town, because he did die from his own sort of wrongdoing, from like loading his boat full of like all his gold, and like the boat sort of slowly went down Lake Town, and like he did throw off his own counselor to like sort of have the weight sort of go down so he could go a little bit faster, but that really didn't work. But I'm glad he did die, and then he also did get choked by like rope from Bart when he like threw it out of like his jail cell, and like sort of Bart broke through the bars. So I thought that was really interesting how Bart actually thought of that. Then we have another one of the dwarfs, and I honestly think his name is like Nori, I believe. Nori, I don't not remember this dwarf, but I find him really interesting when like he was battling and all that. So I might maybe put him maybe in D, because sometimes I could remember like seeing him in like the battles and all that. Next we have, and I'm pretty sure his name is Nori or like Dory, I do not remember, but he was interesting at some times, but he was a little cocky in my opinion, because like in the Unexpected Journey, when all the dwarfs are at like Bilbo's house, he's like, I'm not afraid of a dragon, and like they're talking about Smaug, and like they're all afraid except him. So I find him a little cocky, but I did like the sort of character growth of him. How in the first movie he was like a little cocky, and he seriously used like a slingshot, so that was like a little kiddish. But then in like the next two films, he sort of became a bit more of a sort of teenager. He sort of grew up. So I find that interesting, but I just wish we maybe learned a little more about him. So I might maybe put him maybe in first position in D. Next we have Saruman, and we really didn't see too much of him, not like the Lord of the Rings. We saw him in The Unexpected Journey for like roughly maybe like 5 minutes. Even in that scene he was like rude to Radagast, because Gandalf, he has the like a dagger, which is like, what's it called, from a Nazgul, and like it sort of disintegrates, I think, if you like touch it or something. And like Saruman, he's like, that's Radagast the Brown, he's like crazy and all that. I think it's something like the lungs of like that. But I just find that really sort of disrespectful, because like you're all wizards, shouldn't you be like nice to one another? And like Radagast the Brown is a pretty awesome wizard, like how he can do this sort of stuff with animals. And then we really didn't see a lot of him. I think the last time we saw him was in the Battle of the Five Armies. Yeah, the Battle of the Five Armies, when like he helped Galadriel, and he did ask, are you in need of some assistance, my lady? I just thought that was the funniest thing, because like obviously she needs help. She's like surrounded by a bunch of ghosts, and seeing him battle was definitely really awesome. He did some really cool moves with his staff and all that. So I might possibly maybe put him in D or S, maybe S. Yeah, I think that's a good position, because I just wish we saw more of him. And he was definitely disrespectful to like Radagast, because like you're talking about behind the back of another wizard, where he's, in my opinion, a lot more cooler than you. Then we have Smaug, and he's definitely very interesting, because he did sort of take down Erebor, like a fire breather from the north. Like, but I honestly don't get, like, why would you go inside of a mountain full of gold? Like, what was literally the point of that? Like, could you not find like another mountain where it wasn't populated, so you didn't have to like destroy anything? I just wish we learned the reasoning behind why he chose to like destroy a whole sort of civilization just to like live inside of a mountain full of gold. Like, would the gold even be that comfortable to like lay sort of inside of it. I'm not really sure, but I just wish we learned a little more about Smaug and like why he made this choice. So I might maybe put him in S because he was definitely really awesome to see, and I did like the conversation between Smaug and Bilbo. The next character is Talia, and her name is a little hard to say, so very sorry about that. But I find her a really interesting character because this was like the first character to actually stand up to Threanu, because like she sort of confronted him about not knowing love, because she sort of felt like she knew what love was because she had this connection or like this sort of love with Keeley, and I find that really interesting how sort of committed she was to knowing what love was. And I also really enjoyed the love story, as I said, with Keeley, like between elf and dwarf. I find it definitely very interesting, very simple, but I think very effective. Just a simple love story, sort of compacted into like one movie, because it really didn't happen too much in the Desolation of Smaug. It only like sort of sparked in the Battle of Five Armies, so definitely very interesting. And I also really liked the battles she did as well. I thought it was really enjoyable, especially like the spider one, where you got to see her for the first time, including Keeley. And then the battle with Bolg, I thought that was really interesting, just to see like how powerful Bolg was. I thought it was really interesting how she definitely did struggle against Bolg, so I thought that was really cool. And I also like just how much power she had as well, because she might be just like a female, and like people be like dwarfs and all that, just like she's a female, but she's definitely really strong and definitely very skillful. So I might maybe possibly put her maybe in B, but I just wish we maybe learned a little bit of a backstory about her, but that's really it. Next we have Thorne, and I'm possibly gonna put him maybe in A. No, I might possibly put him like first position in B, because I really liked how in the first film, when he actually met Bilbo, he was like, wow, you're like a useless sort of, or like, not really helpful for our companion against like Smaug and all that. And then in the second film, he sort of began to like Bilbo a little more. But then in the third film, they sort of had this bond with like one another, because like Thorne, he sort of trusted Bilbo the most when like he was in the sort of dragon sickness mode. But then the dragon sickness, that was a little boring to watch, because in my opinion, I think it dragged on a little too much. But then after the dragon sickness, I thought the battle with Azog, I thought that was really awesome to watch. Because what I enjoyed about the battle was it didn't last for like, say, 5 minutes. It lasted for possibly maybe like a good 10 minutes maybe. So I really like just seeing them battle, because they are both very skillful, and it was really awesome to see them battle. But then he did sadly die from like his wounds. And I really liked how Bilbo and Thorne, they sort of had this one-on-one with one another. And what I really liked was that Thorne, he sort of told Bilbo he was sorry and all that. And I really liked just that sort of soft moment with Bilbo. And then he sort of did die beside Bilbo, so that was definitely really sad. And then finally, we have Threanu, and I'm honestly just going to put him straight up in D, in last position, because I think it just uses his power as King of Mirkwood to sort of show that he's in command, and if you don't listen to me, then this will happen. And I honestly really did not like the character, because this part, which we do learn about in the Unexpected Journey, he went to Erebor to actually ask the king, who was, I think it was Thorin's like uncle, and he asked the king for like white gems, but then the sort of king was in like the sort of stage of dragon sickness, so he really wasn't too sure what was going on, and he did say no. But then Smaug did attack, and like Threanu, he did come back with like his elves and all that, and then Thorne asked for like help by like waving his hands, and then like Threanu literally just like rode off on his like moose. And then that is what started like this sort of rivalry between dwarves and elves. So, hope you guys did enjoy this video, because I really did enjoy sharing my thoughts and opinions on my favourite Hobbit trilogy characters. I would definitely love to hear what you have to say down in the comments below, and as always guys, hope you guys did enjoy this video, and I can see you, so goodbye!